Hey Ryan, when you look back over the course of the season, how did it go? Did you accomplish as much as you wanted to accomplish? What were things that maybe you didn't get to that you would like to maybe figure out how to get going forward?
Well, the goal from the onset is, the way I operate from an AHL standpoint is that I'm not, you're not trying to win a championship or not trying, you're trying to develop players. We've got players of all types of contracts. We had a very young group, which I knew going into it, which I was excited about. We talked right from day one of our meeting what we wanted to accomplish as far as our professionalism, how we approach the game, using the resources that we put in place, in the hopes that if we did that, everybody would get better, everybody would have career years, everybody would, and we also talked about the quality of the teammate that we could be for each other and how that would help each individual be better. And that if we did that as individuals, I felt pretty strongly that if by year's end we had focused on those things, that we'd have a pretty good team that had an opportunity to win some playoff games or play playoff games, and we accomplished that. I felt by the end of it, we had a group that could win something. Obviously, a heck of a series against Calgary, but if I look at each player and how much better they got, how they grew as players and people and professionals, I think we accomplished a heck of a lot this year.
You've dealt with a lot of AHL groups, a lot of AHL situations. Is this, you didn't, like you said, you're not there to win a championship, but you play to win. Was this the most satisfying season you've had, being involved with an AHL team?
It's a really special group. I would say that, and losing in game 4 to Calgary hurt a lot because of how much I cared about this group, how much I wanted them to have success. It's a special group of players, coaches, and staff, and seeing especially a lot of these young guys in the fire against an experienced veteran team in Calgary, which I think is a team kind of built to win. To have a bunch of young guys have to fight, and how they fought, it was as impressive and as I told them, I felt really honored and humbled to be associated with them. That's how strongly I felt about this group and how they approached the whole year, how they executed the plan that we put in place for all of them to get better. And so it's been a hard couple of days, I would say that.
Chris Faber, Canucks Army.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for taking the time. Wanted to start with Christian Wolanin, who leads your Abbotsford team in points this season. I was curious how this all came about with signing him and how you guys have seen the progression over the year of him being a Canuck.
He was a player I had, a player type I had interest in, and I think if you guys that have maybe followed along with how we identify players over the last few years is finding maybe players and people that are misinterpreted, maybe haven't been, they need somebody to believe in them and tell them they're a good player and a good person. And Christian was one of those guys on right at free agency that I knew the player type and that we didn't have that type of player in the organization. I knew he was misunderstood. He played at North Dakota where I played, and I've got a relationship with coaches, vouched for him and the player he was. And he was a guy that I talked to directly as opposed to his agent. I talked directly to him and said, I know you need somebody to believe in you, and I do. And I think if you buy into what our environment is there in Abbotsford, I think we could change your career. And he did that. He came in with an open mind, the professionalism and the approach to the game that we ask of our players here, and you see what happened with what he was able to do for our group, and not just the group here in Abbotsford, but obviously went up to Vancouver and played an important part for our group there down the stretch, and now is somebody that, you know, we've got under contract to be a part of our organization for the next 2 years here.
I wanted to ask about Danila Klemovic as well. I know something you said is like, hey, this guy could have been playing junior this year and last year. He was a junior age player playing in the AHL. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how different this season was for him developing. And now what are the expectations for next year? Because he wouldn't be a junior anymore next year.
Yeah, I mean, Danila made huge steps this year in the details of his game that we knew he needed to give him chance to give himself a chance to play a bigger role. His wall play, attention to the D zone, managing the puck, managing the game, a lot of little things, but he really started to understand those parts of it and their value to the overall game and how they would impact a team and trying to win a hockey game. I mean, this may sound very basic, but it is really something that we focused on with him, and he's accepted of it. And you saw all the natural parts of his game flourish, his ability to score and to finish. And but even watching him play in the playoffs and physical and to compete, I think he's learned these parts of his game, not just to be a good hockey player, but be a really good teammate. And that's something that we've focused with him, is playing for his teammates. You know, his growth this year has been amazing, and you get excited to your point of actually next year should be his rookie season, and he scored 17 goals this year in the American Hockey League, which is quite the feat. So expectation for him moving forward is to keep growing, playing a bigger role, being able to play in all situations, and he's really matured, I would say. And again, for a kid that's just 20 years old, there's so much more room to grow, and we're not even close to what his ceiling is. So it'll be another exciting off season for him, and expectations for next season. He just takes another big step.
We'll go next to Ben Lipka, the Abbotsford News.
Hey, Ryan, you announced Chase Waters as the first captain for this team back in October. How do you think he's served in that role?
I just met with him 20 minutes ago, and he is, I mean, the job that he did and did it effortlessly. The great thing about Chase and naming him the captain is he just kind of was like, yeah, great. And just went on with how he carries himself. He wills us into every game with the way he approaches it, his professionalism. He's just a consummate player in person that I feel fortunate to be around and have part of this group. And you know, Chase is the captain of our AHL team, but like I've told him, he's still with how he plays the game, approaches as somebody that I still think has a chance to play in the NHL, and not just play but win. That's the type of player in person he is. So I can't say enough. I don't have words to say how thankful I am to have him as a part of our group, and that the job he did as a captain is it's been outstanding, to say the least.
Yeah, and then just what do you kind of think heading into this fall? What are the top needs, do you think, for this team, like from a roster point of view? Like Calgary had a lot more experience than you guys. Is that kind of what you're looking for, or what are you targeting for coming up the fall?
Well, again, I don't go into an off season with our group of thinking about how do we win a championship. I'm focusing on, we're going to have a lot of, again, we're going to be a very young team next year. Obviously I want to insulate a young group with people that can make sure that they develop and that they've got an opportunity to have success but going to continue to get younger, continue to just build on the environment that we have here. Yeah, I mean, I think even of what you've seen of a lot of our signings and college free agents, and I mean, you already have a pretty good idea of what our group will look like, because we've got a lot of guys on entry-level deals still, or guys coming back, or young guys. So I'm just hoping to build off of what we did this season and the expectation of how we play and how we approach every day we walk in the facility. And but I wouldn't say, focusing on a certain part of, I felt with the group that we had playing against the best team in the American League, that almost 700 NHL games of experience, and we were right there with them for a reason, and so I just want to continue to build off of that, and not more of a sense of how to compete to win, but how do we just keep building this environment that's conducive to players getting better and producing NHL players at the end of the day.
Next up is Jeff Patterson, the Hockey News.
Hey, RJ, thanks for the time. I know PUD Colson was there skating. How close or how far away was he? And ultimately, how much of a missed opportunity for the group, but also for him to play playoff hockey at that level?
Yeah, I mean, he was getting closer. I don't want to say he was close. Obviously, we would have loved to have him experience what our other players went through. I mean, if you watch what even Niels Hoglander, how much he developed as a player and as a person from when he came to us to what he experienced in playoff hockey, and how hard it was, and the nastiness and the compete and the fight. I would have loved to have Pods experience that as well, because I think what Niels went through is going to change the trajectory of his career. And it would have been outstanding for Pods to have that experience as well. But is what it is. It's not, an injury is an injury. There's nothing we could really do about it. But he'll be, I think even him being around and watching these guys battle and fight will, have Pods have a different outlook heading into the summer. And obviously expect big things from him coming into training camp.
I mean, goaltending was such a storyline at both levels this season, and obviously they're tied together. I'm just curious, and I'm trying, this is not finger pointing in any way, because you had two options down there, but what goes into the decision? Was it totally Jeremy's, or does the organization have any say in who got the starts in these playoff games? Because he had that rotation, and then ultimately he broke it and went with Spencer, when you had your team MVP from the regular season get just one of the 4 games against Calgary. Can you just sort of tell me a little bit about what goes into the decision making to come up with a starter in playoff time?
Yeah, well, I think we were really fortunate for the last portion of the year to have 2 very good goaltenders that, especially with our travel, that maybe people aren't aware about it in the schedule. We had a ton of games, that the ability to have alternating goalies to stay fresh. And we always felt that Artie has always been better when he's been pushed, when he's had somebody to compete with. And so we felt like we had a really good situation there heading into the playoffs. Obviously, that's a decision for the coaching staff, and we wanted to maintain both guys playing with the knowledge that anything could happen. As you see in the NHL playoffs right now, goalies going down, and to having both guys ready and fresh. But ultimately, it's a coach's decision to do with what they did, and you stand by that. That's for sure. But both goalies were playing well. And we knew whoever was playing, we were in a good situation. So
We'll go next to Patrick Williams, CAHL.com.
Yeah, Ryan, you mentioned with Christian that, you felt he had been misunderstood. I guess, how was he misunderstood? And in general, with players like that in their mid-20s who maybe have kind of been kicked around, how do you try to manage them when they come into your fold?
Well, I have a lot of conversations, especially with our pro group, about second organization guys, and not that we were Christian second organization, but I think if you look at some of the guys, even in the last few years, that I think sometimes you just have to allow them to be who they are. And I can name you 7 or 8 guys over the last 3 or 4 years that we brought in and just gave them the opportunity to be them, be themselves, and not try to mold them into something that we want them to be. I preach to guys all the time and said this to Christian is, I know you've got confidence and swagger, and I love that. But I need that Monday morning at 8 a.m. when you come into practice, and not Friday night at 7 o'clock. If you've got that confidence and that belief and that swagger, I want you to own it every day. I want you to be the best player in practice. I want that swagger in the gym of how hard you work. And that's some of the conversations I had with Christian and other players, that guys know I'm not going to ask. I want them to be themselves, and I want them to be the player that they are. I just need the professionalism that comes along with it, and an attitude and a buy-in to what how our group operates every day. And I always tell those guys, if you do that, just watch what'll happen. Watch what type of season you'll have. You'll feel part of something, you'll feel important, but most importantly, you feel like you can be yourself. And that's something that I wanted to make sure Christian had the opportunity, and as he started to flourish and be the best teammate he could be, good things were happening for him, and benefited him and benefited our team.
And then just with travel, kind of how do you think your group managed that? It's always going to be difficult for your, given your location, and just, will there maybe be any efforts to modify that, or, try to make it, more optimal?
No, it is what it is. And it's something Ben Goodman, who understands what we need to. Sometimes we've got to travel 2 days ahead to make sure we get a practice day in between, because there's some long days in the airport. But I think we've done the best that we could do with it. It is what it is. I also think it's helped us in a sense of when we've got to get on the road for a week or 10 days as a group, we get some quality time together and do some things away from the arena that tends to bring us together. So it's fine. We have some long trips and some long days, absolutely, but that comes with the territory. And I don't get a lot of complaints from the players or from our staff. It is what it is, and that's a part of where we are, and it's also part of I know, as a player playing in Vancouver, it comes with the territory a little bit.
David Quadrelli, Canucks Army.
Hey Ryan, I want to talk to you about Archie Baines, just his development through the year. What are some of the things that maybe you didn't see at the start of the year that you saw by the end of the season?
Well, what an incredible story with Baines, of him coming in with the accolades that he did, and having us kind of communicate to him that we're going to have you produce, hopefully by the end of the year, at the same level you were. We're just going to strip you down completely and rebuild you. You're going to find a complete different way to produce the same way you did in junior. A lot of kids would look at you and tell you you're crazy and say, I got this, I know what I'm doing. But Bainesy was vulnerable to it. That he knew, now being a pro, and how he was going to have to play the game and find different ways to get the puck on a stick. He was a healthy scratch at times earlier in the year, but the way he worked on his game and bought into some of the things and the details and the wall play and managing the puck and the down low play below the tops of the circles. Look at the season that he had as a first year player, and the growth that he took exponentially throughout the year is something that it taught me, and something that I can use moving forward to other players that are similar to him, that have produced at very high level from wherever they came from, and understanding that they're going to have to make some changes to be able to give themselves a chance to play in the NHL. And that's exactly what he's done.
Were you at all surprised? Like, you know, you mentioned high scorer in the CHL. Were you at all surprised by the buy-in from him this year?
Not surprised. I mean, he's a fantastic human being. Used all the resources that we have here, from our coaches to our development staff and Daniel and Henrik, and not once did he look at you like you don't know what you're talking about. His hockey sense is off the charts. I mean, off the charts. So when you have that in your back pocket, and then you buy in to the way you've got to play and get rewarded for it, even a guy that you see in key games in the playoffs was killing penalties for us. Would anybody have said to me at the start of the year, Baines is going to be, you know, in your top 4 penalty killers as a forward? They probably would have laughed. But he earned his way into that opportunity by the way he practiced. He was killing against our power play units at the start of the year that he wasn't on, and so that's the type of person he is. So to say I'm surprised, not at all, especially with the tools that he has, but also the hockey sense is off the charts, and worked on his skating, has worked on all these other parts of his game. I don't think we're anywhere near even close to the ceiling of what he could be as a player.
Okay, unless we have any other final follow-ups, we'll take one last one here from Chris Faber, Canucks Army.
Just wanted to ask about any prospects, I guess, coming to the AHL next year. I think Josh Bloom is the only one that I can see that will be graduating from the OHL coming. Is there anybody else from the prospect system that you expect to be in an Abbotsford jersey next year?
I know obviously Bloom is a guy that will be coming in. Not that I would expect any of even our guys that are playing in Europe. Most of those guys are by design are going to play another year over there before they come over. So at this point, he would probably be, you know, and some of the college free agents and guys that we've signed at year end this year. Some of those will obviously be coming to us. So as I said, we're going to continue to get younger, but that's exciting for me to have a bunch of young players here that are growing, competing, and having a chance to win is how you develop NHL players. And we're going to have some guys that were here as young guys, hopefully pushing for spots in Vancouver in September, or at least, you know, playing games next year and getting that opportunity.
So we've got a few other follow-ups here, so we'll go single questions to Patrick Johnston for post media.
Just on a similar note, Conor Lockhart, I mean, where are things at with him? I know you guys have to make a decision on him.
Yeah, something we'll be discussing once we kind of take some time here and digest the end of the season here of what our plans are through the summer and moving forward into next season. So that's something we'll be discussing as a group.
Ben Lipka, the Abbotsford News.
Just wondering, what did you see from Jet Wu this year, and how do you think he developed under Jeremy?
Well, fantastic year. I mean, he was such a huge part of our group in forming his identity as a player. I think last year was something we really struggled with, but this year, his growth in his game and building his identity as a player, as a puck moving, physical, heavy, and contributed offensively as well. Even played on the second unit power play at times, but he's shot himself forward. That's for sure. And I felt, you know, had things maybe gone a little differently, he was a guy we were hoping to get a chance to play some games up top, but he's put himself in the conversation to come and compete for a spot next year in Vancouver, or worst case, you know, I see him as a guy that's going to play NHL games next year because of the growth and how far he came along this year as a player and as a person, as a professional. it was awesome to see.
And we've got one final one here from Jeff Patterson, the Hockey News.
Brian, just a quick thought on Daniel and Henrik and their sort of investment of time and effort and energy and what they've meant to the prospects and to just the organization at that level.
Well, it's been, I mean, I can't tell you how fortunate I feel and how personal they take the future of this organization. Is you see that every day, and having those guys drive out here 2-3 days a week and be on the ice and a part of our meetings and a resource for these players with a genuine interest. I had so much fun watching them have fun, working with a really young team and a young group. And yeah, it was a huge part of, I think, our growth in our environment here. And when you got young players that realize you get two, recently inducted Hall of Famers that care that much about these players and the future of the organization, that resonates huge with these guys. And the little conversations and things that they talk about post practice or in the gym or around with these guys, it means a lot. And not just because of they were great players, because they're great people and they care that much about this group and the organization. And like I said, I feel incredibly fortunate to have them being a part of our team here.